Well, hello everybody, Roger here, and welcome to my channel, Roger's Reads. So today I'm going to do a brief review of Thunderhead, written by Neal Schusterman. So Thunderhead is book 2 in the Arc of a Scythe series. So if you haven't read Scythe, this review may contain some spoilers for the first book, but I'll try not to give away too much. So Thunderhead picks up 1 year after where the first novel in the series, Scythe, left off. So if you're not familiar with what a scythe does or what scythes are, or don't know what the Thunderhead is, then you'll probably want to read the first book before continuing on with this review. So first off, it's worth mentioning that there are no longer any governments in the society of this world. All jurisdiction falls under what is called the Thunderhead, which actually evolved from our internet's cloud, which is the title of the novel, Thunderhead. So Thunderhead is the ultimate jurisdiction and knows everything about everyone and intervenes when necessary. But as a society, nobody fears the Thunderhead. On the contrary, the Thunderhead is revered almost like a god. The Thunderhead protects and provides for everyone. It has also developed its own consciousness as it evolved from the cloud to the Thunderhead. Now, the one exception to the Thunderhead intervening in the lives of others is when it comes to scythe business. It was agreed upon long ago that the Thunderhead would have absolutely no jurisdiction when it came to scythes, and that it completely and always is to stay out of scythe business. But even though the Thunderhead cannot get involved in scythe business without breaking its own rules, it watches, and it becomes increasingly apparent as the novel progresses that the Thunderhead does not always like what it sees. So one of the main characters in this book is Scythe Anastasia, who has recently caused quite a ruckus in the scythedom because of her gleaning methods. Gleaning, of course, is scythe speak for killing. You see, instead of just sticking someone with a knife without any warning, which is the custom method of gleaning of her mentor, the Grand Dame of Death, Scythe Anastasia instead gives everybody 1 month to get their affairs in order. Not only that, she allows them to choose their own method of gleaning or death. So not all the scythes in the scythedom are on board with her methods, and the old guard was pretty up in arms about it. But as with all scythes, she has a right to glean as she sees fit. I felt that Scythe Anastasia really came into her own in this novel. Now, there's another scythe who's also attracting a lot of attention these days, and that's Scythe Lucifer. Now, Scythe Lucifer is a rogue scythe who's hunting down corrupt scythes as a vigilante of sorts and bringing permanent death by burning to those scythes who do not adhere to the original principles of compassion and high moral standards. The scythedom, of course, is outraged by Scythe Lucifer's actions and have made many attempts to find him and capture him, all of which thus far have failed. So it's also worth mentioning that Scythe Lucifer is someone whom Scythe Anastasia knows and cares about very much. So given that the Thunderhead has no jurisdiction over the scythedom, it has done absolutely nothing to stop Scythe Lucifer from killing scythes. Even though the scythedom has asked the Thunderhead for intervention, the Thunderhead has pretty much refused, which the scythedom actually found very strange and unsettling. You see, the kicker is that Scythe Lucifer is not a scythe, nor has he ever been ordained as a scythe. So naturally, it does not make sense to the scythedom whatsoever why the Thunderhead refuses to step in and put a stop to what it sees as these murders. Actually, Scythe Lucifer himself is confused and surprised by the Thunderhead's apparent lack of intervention. He thought for sure that the Thunderhead would put a stop to his antics right away. But when it didn't, Scythe Lucifer figures what the hell, and keeps right on doing what he's doing. That is, until he falls into the hands of an old enemy. So Scythe Lucifer isn't the only one who's taken aback by this enemy's appearance. In fact, this person's resurfacing throws the Scythedom into utter chaos as a result of his scheming, conniving, deceit, and malice. And we can't help but wonder whether the Thunderhead will eventually break its own rules and intervene. Let me just say that some really horrible things happen at the hands of this enemy. Now, there's also a new and multi-layered character introduced in this book named Grayson Tolliver, who plays a very important role between the Scythedom and the Thunderhead. And I can't wait to see how his role is going to evolve in the next book. So on to the prose, what I liked about the book. One aspect of this novel that I especially enjoyed was that we delved deeper into the Thunderhead's brain and learned more about how the Thunderhead operates and how it thinks through various diary entries, much like we saw with the Scythe journals in the first book. I felt that the Thunderhead viewpoints were not only fun, but added an incredible element to the story. Like the first book in this series, the world building is amazing in this book, especially once the island comes into this scene. For some reason, I felt that the world building was much more expanded from the first book, making it even more believable and relatable in this story. I also really liked the new character of Grayson Tolliver, who I mentioned a moment ago, and his connection between both the Thunderhead and the Scythedom. It really worked for me when the Thunderhead, or how the Thunderhead indirectly sends Grayson to do things that the Thunderhead cannot because of its own laws. So I'm really curious to see what the Thunderhead has in store for Grayson coming up. And that's all I'm going to say on that matter because, as always, we never want to head into spoiler territory. Also, like the first book, I adored the writing style, and I felt that the storytelling was first rate. I love how the book deals with questions of death in a utopian society. I also like that it was practically impossible to predict how this book would end, and it caught at least me totally off guard in the best of all possible ways. I also liked how the Thunderhead, even though it's an AI, basically a machine, displays an astonishing degree of human emotions, which, as the story progresses, we can't help but wonder what would happen if the Thunderhead were to exhibit, shall we say, anger or outrage. And we almost see the Thunderhead heading toward this more and more through his diary entries. Now, I have to admit that I was a little bit hesitant going into this book, as my experience has shown me that often the middle book in a series tends to fall kind of flat. That was not the case with this book. However, this book was amazing. Oh, and now one thing that gave me the chuckle, kind of a chuckle, was that one of the Scythe's names in the book was Scythe Beyonce. So on to what I disliked. You know, I can't say that I really disliked any of the plot devices, the character development, or the story elements. Of course, I detested the villains so much, but then again, we're supposed to. And yes, I'm using the plural here, as there are more than one villain in this tale. Though I wasn't too thrilled that the book ended on a cliffhanger, I did feel that this momentous ending was very well done. And as many of you know, I'm not a fan of cliffhangers, so that's saying something. But other than that, I can't pinpoint anything that I particularly disliked about this novel. So my final verdict, I'd say fantastic, multi-layered characters who experience immense growth from one novel to the next. Perfect pacing and a serpentine plot that takes numerous unexpected twists and turns made this book a delight to read. It was thought-provoking, a fast-paced, gripping, and a haunting tale with plenty of dramatic action and political intrigue as well. And I absolutely loved it. Really, this book blew my mind. Now I will say, as I kind of hinted at, that there is a huge climax and twist of the nail-biting variety at the end of this book, which left its hook kind of deep in me, and now I just cannot wait for the next book. Now, even though I'm not a fan of cliffhangers, I have no choice but to give this book 5 stars because I loved it that much. You know, often I feel robbed when slapped with a cliffhanger ending, but not so much with Thunderhead. This ending was satisfying, but yet left me wanting more. The only thing I hate is that I have to wait until 2019 to see how this all resolves itself. And I think the name of the final installment is called The Toll. So that would be book 3 in the Arc of Assize series. So you might want to keep your eye open for this down the road. So that's it for my review of Thunderhead. Loved this book. Have you read it? If so, let me know what you thought of it in the comments. And that's it for this time. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.